of the Rugby Rant show. We try and have fans on to get their opinion, because you will always hear my opinion. I don't shut the fuck up and I got a loud mouth. You'll hear, he's like, it'll go back into place without surgery as long as you continue not to play contact sports. So I haven't played a contact sport since. We feel like there should be more publicness of what's going on sometimes. Like, they're so super secretive about everything. This is MLR, this is USAR, this is 15, this is sevens, even some of the colleges. Like, I don't understand why everything needs to be a secret all the time.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. You are now tuned in to the greatest of all time, the greatest of all time.
Welcome to the Rugby Swag Show. Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Rugby Swag. My name is GiftTime and Baylor, and of course, this is a show where we make sure that you don't lose a story through news and interviews. Y'all, we got a great guest for you today. Obviously, you probably saw this on the title card, but it doesn't matter, man. We're bringing in the Scott Ferrara of the Rugby Rant Podcast. Great podcast that he co-hosts with his buddy, Rob Hammerschmidt. Hey, and this is one that they have brought me on several times, and so it was really great to be able to return the favor for once and to be able to at least get half of the group. We'll get the other one later. No worries. But before we really get started into this, I need you guys to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you may, go ahead and leave a comment if you may, because one, it helps the algorithm and lets it know that you guys think that maybe we have a value of some sort and lets us be able to spread the story around. And in addition, I got a very fragile ego, and, sometimes I just need to feed it, I'm going to be chronically online too much. But for you guys, I'll be chronically online anytime. Yes. But no, I definitely would appreciate it if you guys do. And of course, if you guys are not on YouTube, please go ahead and check us out on any major audio streaming platform. That is Spotify, that is Apple Podcasts, that is iHeartMedia, that is Amazon Music. We want to be where you are. And if you guys could go ahead and hit a follow on there, it would help tremendously. And of course, to be able to share it to your friends and family so that they can be able to partake in learning the information about this great sport that we do love so much. And lastly, y'all, we are all about communication and being able to provide just even more value from all levels to continue to be where you are. And you can find us on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Rugby Swag Show. Or you can find us on X at GiftABelu, GiftEgbelu. And then on all other platforms, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, if we go live, you can find us at GiftTime Rugby, GiftTime Rugby. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate all the support you guys have given. Continue to want to be able to bring value and at least bring the conversation and bring the news and kind of help give a voice to some of the things that may not be heard so much and an explanation to the things that we might need to discuss. And, we just need a different perspective going through it. So I truly appreciate you guys so much on this. But like I said, we have a great guest for you today. Scott has been doing great work with the Rugby Rant Podcast, so going on almost 5 years now of doing it, maybe a little bit longer. But man, when we talk about passionate fandom that comes over into media to be able to give back to the very game that's provided him the joy and love and community that one could desire, Scott is the example and the pinnacle of this. I think we had as great a discussion as ever. I think this was as best a discussion that I could have had with him up to this point. I look forward to doing it again in the near future, on and off camera. But this was really interesting. It put some perspective for me, and of course, sometimes I can be jaded, sometimes I can be very hopeful. But this was a great little balance out, and I think this could be very useful for you as well. I think it provides, especially from some level of an insider's perspective on how the game goes. On the other hand, it also provides the joy and the hope that any fan should be able to feel about what the future of rugby is, especially with something like the MLR or what you could be able to present from there. So I think this was great, man. I give a lot of credit to Scott. And of course, Y'all, like I always like to say, man, you can also check out some of our other past interviews as well. Obviously, we talked with Mike Friday, former USA Rugby Sevens head coach for the men's side. We talked with Nadine Roos, who is the fly half for Springbok women, and Joanne Yap, who is the Wallaroos, the Australian women's national team's 15s coach, and just so many more that I consider you guys going back and these conversations help to not only create an information about what is going on in rugby, but to also understand the humans. Like, this is what we want to do. Obviously, we know the players, we can know the public facing, but we want to know the presentation and how they think, and it makes it easier to be able to know what's going on, of course. But before I let you guys go into it, I need to take care of those who take care of us. And I'd let you know that this episode is brought to you by Health Enhanced Foods. Health Enhanced Foods is a special dietary baking mix store that will provide you with the baking mixes that are going to help you make sure that you don't feel regret whenever you eat. Of course, the holiday season is coming in. We got Thanksgiving and Christmas just around the corner, and you got to know that you're going to eat. Like, we know this. You're going to eat, but you don't have to be punished for it. We, of course, when we're playing rugby, we have to be able to keep in somewhat shape. Even us props and forwards, we got to keep at least a level of shape, but we want to be able to eat and eat with gusto. So with Health Enhanced Foods baking mixes, you absolutely can be able to get the breads, which you can get your pies and your pizza crusts, your biscuits, your just flour-based concepts where you can be able to eat and actually get healthy gains and not just the itis along with it. You find us over at healthenhancedfoods.com. You can use promo code RugbySwag for 20% off your first order. And of course, we want to make sure that you are going to be able to have a very, very wonderful holiday season. So definitely go check out healthenhancedfoods.com for more information and to get your bag of baking mix. Now, hey, don't want to hold off any longer. Man, let's get to it. Scott Ferrara of the Rugby Rant Podcast. Check it out.
Buckwheat is changing lives. My name is GiftTime. I'm here with Health Enhanced Foods, and I want to tell you about one of my favorite products on our shelves, buckwheat baking mix. Buckwheat is a seed that is incredibly nutrient and protein dense. But what makes it even more important, that buckwheat baking mix is absolutely gluten-free. A lot of times whenever people have buckwheat mixes, they actually even hold wheat inside of it. So you know it's not fully gluten. And if you're a person that is celiac or diabetic, or you're just really trying to be health conscious, it's not something that you want to have to worry about. What makes our buckwheat baking mix even more important is that it is versatile. You can use it for pancakes, you can use it for waffles, you can use it for making loaves of bread, you can make it for cupcakes. But what helps even more is that it is allergen-free, it is nut-free, it is dairy-free, that there is no additional additives in it. There's no leavening there, so that if you want to be able to raise your bread, you can put in the baking powder yourself and get it fluffy. If you don't, you absolutely do not have to. You get the bread that you love without the cost to your health. You can absolutely find buckwheat baking mix at healthenhancedfoods.com. Absolutely check it out. Get your nostalgia back. Get back to eating and loving the way that you are, and absolutely get back to the energy that you know that you can get without having to destroy yourself. I'm looking forward to seeing you get it. Let's go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Rugby Swag. We got a special guest for you today. This man is one part of one of the best podcasts that came out of COVID, the Rugby Rant. Man has been following MLR, knows the college. This guy has been doing it between him and his guy, Rob Hammersmith, who's a Nola Gold fan, who also is from Chicago, which made no sense, but Lindenwood, like all this. But you know what? They've come together to make one of the most interesting weekly podcasts that you have out there. I want to shout it out. Scott Ferrara, man, Scott, bro, thank you so much for coming through.
Absolutely. You know what? It's funny because Hammer's not the only MLR fan I know that has had to switch allegiances. So I became friends with a lady who I met, believe it or not, before the MLR through the Saracens on Tour fan club. And what happened was the Saracens came to New York twice and then played in Philly once. And their fan club was coming over and they wanted to get in contact with some American fans. So me and Sue Parks became friends. And originally, she lives down in Virginia. Originally, she was a Seattle Seawolves fan. You know, we were talking 2018. They didn't have a team. I knew New York was coming in 2019. So I was like, I can hold off. That's and then, yeah, and then she gets her team in DC in OG, and she switches. You know, Hammer, same thing, right? He was a NOLA guy. Chicago wasn't a thought at the time, and then boom, he's from you know, he lives in Illinois. Chicago gets him, and then the Lindenwood thing. His son Preston played for Lindenwood for 4 years, so you know that's natural. But yeah, I think it's just the progression of the league, especially if you started in 2018 when there was only 8 teams. You know. You picked an allegiance, and then finally, when something came your way, you kind of swap. So I give no hate to that because I have a lot of friends who did it. I had to do it with New York folding. Now I'm a Chicago fan, but you know, as long as you're not a New England fan, I'm okay. I'm good.
The key is, hey. Yeah. Keep it below the England Dixon line. We don't go over New York, all right?
There's like exit 52. Exit 52 in Connecticut is usually the delineation between Yankees, Mets, and then Red Sox. So like right halfway through Connecticut on 95, I think it's Branford, Connecticut. That's where, like, keep it south. Keep it south of there. Yeah.
Yo, Scott, okay, the super New Yorker on this one as well. Shout out to you. Okay. Oh, we got jokes for days for this one. No, I'm not.
First of all, you hype me. You're the best hype man because you hype me up like you haven't had the head coach of the Wallaroos and shit like on the show. Like, you know, let's be honest. Like I'm a neophyte in this game here, and you know, people would look at me and go, "Who's this fat bastard?" I don't know. You know, he probably plays Division III prop. You know,
this is why we need this. All right, this is why we need, because we forget. All right, that to someone else, we are that person. Like, we look at those that are like, whether it's a Wallaroo or it's a player or something, we're just like, oh man. You know,
yeah, but you just had Mike Friday on, and then you followed him up with me. Like, what? I mean, I don't know if your show's going downhill because of that. You might lose a bunch of viewers and subscribers, but I'm just saying, be careful.
Look, we set the tone. All right, that's what we do. We set the tone. They don't have a place to start looking good unless it's us. All right, we're not worried about them overseas people. This is us.
No, but seriously, like this is I watch Rugby Swag. I really love it. I mean, you have a really good mix of interviewing. You have, you know, what you want to talk about, you know, in your in your topics, and you know, luckily for me, you know, our show, the Rugby Rant, is really North American rugby. The show is North American rugby, but we just started our website with our blogs, and we kind of opened it up to talk about any type of rugby, and it doesn't have to be necessarily North American. It could be any level. It could be whatever thought. You know, they're doing the 20-minute red card now worldwide through World Rugby. We were testing it already in MLR, so we had experience with it. But, you know, if that was something that one of my guys wanted to do, and luckily we have 3 or 4 guys besides me and Hammer, so we have other opinions too. And that's part of the Rugby Rant show. We try and have fans on to get their opinion, because you will always hear my opinion. I don't shut the fuck up and I got a loud mouth. You'll hear it from my house, you know. So we need to get people on that aren't me and Hammer, and that's what we do. You know, we have our buddy TJ Olson, who's been on 7 or 8 times, is on the current episode, and again, he's West Coast guy. He, you know, born in Australia, played rugby at a pretty high level, coached rugby. He's a director of rugby. Oh God, I forgot what club it is. He's going to kill me because we just talked about it. But you know, it's those types of voices. They're just having just a fan on. We had this woman, Christina Latham, who's just a fan. She was new to rugby. She got into the MLR. She's from the Houston area, so obviously she's a SaberCats fan. And we were just like, you know, she always talked about the show. You know, she would comment stuff. I'm like, why don't you come on? You have an opinion. You know, we're not looking for in-depth. You know, talk about Matt. I mean, sometimes we do, but like, you know, if we're looking for in-depth talk,
it's perspective.
We get guys.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
This is why you get like it's the conversation, because again, sometimes it's like, you know, what we see, what we get online, right? And there's always the back and forth that can go there. But sometimes you want to be able to have that ability to vocalize it and be able to think the thoughts through. And the fact of being able to have a platform and be able to go on a platform, which again, I go back and say one of the reasons why I'm so willing and it's very easy to hype you up and guys like that is because you know, it takes time to put the platform together. It is a dedication, especially within this rugby industry, and to be able to get people that will actually pay attention to it. These are levels to it, and a lot of people will go like, well, they can critique what we say or what we do, but a lot of people are not going to go, which is fine. It's part of the fun of this, right? But it's like you don't make the platform. And that is a task, and it is a dedication, and to some extent, it's an obsession. Like,
definitely. I mean, I gotta be honest. Like, there were certain points with my son where I wasn't able to go on the show, and Rob really held it down for me. You know, my son was in the hospital for a couple surgeries and stuff, and when I got back and got regularly back on the show, it was like I just felt better. I just felt like family. I felt like this is where I need to be, and this is something that takes my mind off of what's going on, you know, in the real world, quote unquote. It's almost like, you know, when you played high school sports, once you got on the field or the ice or the pitch or whatever you were doing for the practice between school and going home, you forgot about everything, right? The same thing when I'm doing shows like this, or I'm doing the Rugby Rant, or, you know, if me and Rob are just having, like, you know, we have monthly meetings where we talk about, you know, where we want to go. You know, it's the possibilities are endless, and you know, luckily, again, I have a really great partner, Rob, who shares the same vision I have, you know. Right. So it's very easy to say, like, when we decided we wanted to do the website, I said, you know, really, I'm a writer. I've been a writer since high school. I've written poems. I've written short stories that have been published and stuff like that. And when I first started, before podcasting, really, this was like 15 years ago, had a small website where I was just doing stuff about business. I'm an accountant by trade, and I was typing articles. And then the podcasting came through, and I kind of transitioned that to HR, and audio and stuff like that, and then the Rugby Rant, which, you know, you talk about talking online. That's how the Rugby Rant started. So 2020 happens. I will never forget March 15th, because the 17th was supposed to be the first home Rooney match of the 2020 season. Because if you remember back then, Toronto and New York would play like the first 5 or 6 matches away, because they were going through February and they didn't want the cold. So usually the second or third weekend in March, they'd start up at home. So I'm like, oh, great. You know, first Rooney match of 2020. You know, we went through a 2019 season where we made the playoffs and lost in the semifinal. You know, this is going to be great. And then March 15th, they closed down New York State, you know. In that time, me and Rob Hammerschmidt had been going back and forth about Matthew Bastro. He was on Rooney, and, you know, he looked at his shape and stuff, but I got to be honest, yes, he wasn't going to play wing, but he was still going to be a hefty number 8, you know. He's still Matthew Bastro, you know. And we're just going back and forth, and you know, Rob is a intelligent, nice guy, so it was friendly banter. You know, it wasn't like vitriol, but we were doing it on this platform on Facebook called the MLR Fan Zone, which Ty had created, and Ty messages us. Ty still has it. That's part of the platform we use. You know, we have our Rugby Rant on Facebook, but we have this MLR Fan Zone, which really, again, is we try and make it as North America centric as possible, for fans to connect. Ty messages us and said, hey, we should do a show. Our first episode was me, Ty, Hammer, and Dallin Stanford. And Dallin's wife had given him a COVID haircut. So eventually, when you guys are seeing this, I'm finally putting our back catalog on YouTube. If you go to episode 1, you get to see Dallin with this funky haircut. Poor Dallin. I just went long. I just said, screw it. I'll wait till they open back up. I'm not letting my wife touch my hair. And I had hair down to my shoulders.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'll be scruffy. We can be homeless. It's okay.
I was like, at the end of COVID, when New York State finally opened back up, I mean, I had hair down to my shoulders, and I never had that before. So, but yeah, so it was that kind of, you know, talking and everything that got us together, and eventually got us. Now we're in, you know, 5th year. We've interviewed so many people. I mean, I actually have a list, because I was doing this back catalog on YouTube, and I'm insane. I'm like, I have to have a list, because if I don't have a list, I'm going to miss something. But like, it's just going through it.
Episodes of that. You're talking about, and that's what? 80-something interviews.
And that's the thing. It's 158 episodes of the Rant. Interviews we don't number. So we're probably it's actually, as a matter of fact, it's 189 interviews, 189 rants, and then probably another 100 interviews. So we're talking about we're over 300 episodes, but we don't count the rants as such. But it was, I'll tell you, like, I don't know how to explain. It feels weird. I'm 37, almost 40, and like Chance Wengluski's 27, and I'm like fanboying when he's in New York. I'm like, it's cool to hang with him. I got, Andy Ellis gets hurt in 2022. 2022? No, 2023. No, shit. 2021. Andy Ellis gets hurt after the first 5 or 6 matches, and there's an away match for Rooney. I forgot who they were playing. Andy wasn't going to make the trip, obviously, because he wasn't going to play.
Right.
So he came to the watch party. So I'm sitting there, I'm sitting there with my wife. I'm waiting for my buddies to show up or whatever. And all of a sudden, this Andy Ellis just sits down next to me. I'm like, fucking, like, and I've talked to him before and stuff, through the show. And we had interviewed him and stuff. And I interviewed him for the New York show and whatever. And then we just hung out. And then it was like every time he saw me, we hung out. And then like, in 2023, he was off the New York team, but he came in to like consult a little bit. And I go down to a practice, and all of a sudden, I get tackled from behind, and it's Andy Ellis. And he's like, big guy. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy that this happens.
That's exactly the thing. I go back again to what makes it so important that we also are giving the flowers that it's given, because there is an accessibility. And for me, I've always said that entering into this rugby media game changed my perspective of how sports media really ran. And not to say that we're working on a high level, because not, but it's the accessibility. And then once you understand the accessibility and you're just like, oh, this is what it's like. Oh, like we can be cool. Like, I understand you as a player. Oh, crap. This also can mess with the way I need to talk about people, because I'm like, I kind of know you.
Yeah.
For real. Now I got to put this into context, but it adds, and it's one thing I do love about rugby, and it's why I think it's part of the obsession. Is that one, there is a down to earth that goes with it. Like, no matter who we interview, like it always ends up being like you're just another guy. We're talking. It almost sometimes you're just a really top layer club player, like a really top level club player. But at the same time, you're one that has a massive audience, or like there's a lot of watch. You're on a platform that makes a difference, but it doesn't feel too big for the moment. But at the same time, it feels like I can give you your accolades because I've seen what you do. And like, that is absolutely legit. But to be able to context those two together is weird. Like, if being on the outside in, it's like, oh, you've got to, I gotta, who do I need to jack right now? Who do I need to go mess with over here to go get to that? Versus like, yo, we just like asked.
They gave me credentials. I'm on the sidelines for an Eagles game. What the hell?
Yo, I remember the first time. Look, I'll always give glory, and I still got to bring it back to you because we still got to get your origin story. But I always give credit to Laura. Oh my gosh, why am I forgetting her last name? But she was the communications director for USA Rugby back in 2013, 2014, and it's long gone through a cycle of them. But I always give the credit to her because, like, whenever I started, like, I'm just a guy. Like, there was no reason to be able to get credentials as media. I had a website that was just Louisiana, and literally, I think we were going to South Carolina for it. And I'm just like, you really gave me credentials for this? I was like, wait, I'm allowed to go inside this booth? More importantly, I didn't have to pay for the game? Like, it's like, yo, let's go. And then all of a sudden, you're just like, now for me, I'm like, I'm never going to pay for a rugby game. I will talk about as much rugby to add the same value as what it would be to pay for. But it's like, I absolutely want to make sure that I can always be able to get that credentialed element, not for the narcissism of it, but to be able to get like a bigger picture of what's going on, because it's not common. Though I do think that sometimes the fan experience is probably a little bit more exciting from that position. But
I also like, as a fan, let's be honest, as a fan, you could voice your opinion in a certain way and it's not going to affect what you do on, outside of, obviously if you're saying something disgusting, it's one thing. But my point is, if you boo a player because you're mad at him, not going to affect anything else.
Right,
But,
you're one of 1,000 voices.
yeah,
that are out.
if I do it now, generally, if I'm booing somebody, I know them, so I'm okay with that. And I'm like, you guys suck. I'll see you after the match. But like, you kind of have to hold your tongue a little bit. So, I mean, as much as I like to give my opinion and things like that, I think I do hold my tongue to a certain extent. One, because it doesn't make sense to tear people down. To be quite honest, I really, the Rugby Rant, we try and build these guys up and we try and, get them out there in the public. And two, like, it's just a sport. Like, you know what I mean? It's a job like everybody else. I got a job, you got a job, they have a job. Their job happens to be a sport we love. So why get crazy with it,
And I think that's part of it as well too. And look, even within the elements that I become most critical about, because I think you're right, from a player standpoint or what happens on the field, I've become significantly more empathetic with that. I will talk about a team. I will always talk as a team and be like, yo, this team did not do well. This team did not. But from an individual standpoint, I can't tear them down because I know exactly what you're.
I think you can. There's a caveat to that, because if you see somebody whiff on a tackle, you could be like, that guy whiffed on a tackle. That doesn't mean he didn't give the effort. That doesn't mean he's not a capable player or a good person. He whiffed on a tackle in an important part of a game. All right, that was Scott Ferrara,
Right. But that's where it goes into like that's a critique as opposed to it being like a vitriol. I feel I can be more vitriol with a team because there's not a face I put to the team. This is the collective effort of everybody. It's not I'm pointing you out and I'm pointing you out and I'm pointing you out and you guys are the sucky ones and then go through. It's like, no, as a team, you got like I'll talk like Houston Sabercats. I'm like, you guys are choke artists. As a team, you're a choke artist. Individually, you guys
San Diego.
Yeah, exactly. Look, hey, Emmanuel, all the guys, hey, you guys are good individually, but collectively, as this unit, I'm treating you guys like the Megazord from Power Rangers. All right, you guys, you failed on this one. So it's like
there's Pote blowing into a flute dagger,
But it's funny because even at the same time, so I talked with Mike Friday, and one of the things that he told me up front, he was like, "Oh yeah, I heard what you said about the 12-12 draw against France," and I was like, "All right, shit. I gotta stand on business though, because people are listening. Because I didn't really think anybody listened. But even if they didn't, you're always ready for it. Like I've known people hear stuff, but like you stay ready, and it's just like, but note this: if I'm gonna say it now, I need to know that I mean it, and it can't be super loose off the.
If I say something,
there's wheat flour that you can eat. My name is GiftTime in Baylor. I'm here with Health Enhanced Foods. And I want to tell you about one of our best and most beloved products, our sweet white wheat baking mix. Now, this is the baking mix for those who are not really looking for something that's gluten-free, but they are looking for something that they can eat that is going to still be healthy and is not going to be dangerous. White flour is typically a very processed, incredibly bleached flour, and it's not good for you. It's incredibly cheap for a reason. Our sweet white wheat bread mix is whole grain, dairy-free, high in dietary fiber, free of additives, and is absolutely unprocessed and unrefined. With our sweet white wheat bread mix, you can feel like you're getting all the same rewards that you would get from poor white bread, but with all the nutritional value. You're able to still make your bread loaves or your cakes, your flat bread or your cookies, but you don't have to feel like you are going to be robbing yourself of good carbohydrates. You can get the sweet white wheat bread mix from healthenhancedfoods.com. Absolutely go impress your friends and family with the greatest bread while not making them feel like they have to be gluten-free at the same time. No dangers, full body pleasures. Go ahead and get yours today. Let's go.
Thing on the show, I will 100% say it if the person is on the show with me to their face. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's the only way to make it justifiable. Otherwise, it's
most recently, I talked about, I feel like there's a lack of creativity in the offensive strategy for the Eagles. And I feel like we need to pick and choose where we can take liberties to be more creative, to offer us more offensive chances. And the next time Scott Lawrence comes on the show, I will be happy to say that to his face, because I think he's a little too conservative based upon some of the teams we're playing where we need to score the points to win. You know what I mean? And we don't need to play the traditional game of rugby, you know, where we need to hold ourselves a little bit back because we're worried about the defensive side. I feel like for the Eagles right now, need to just kind of let it rip at certain points. And I don't think they do that. And I would be very comfortable saying that to Scott Lawrence, either in person or when the next time he comes on our show. So again, it's constructive. He's a great coach. He's putting together a great team. I feel we could do a little more offensively and be a little more creative. That's all.
No, and that goes back to like being able to have that, and I think it's also it adds to that curiosity of like I can have the conversation, like we can have the and you know, as a fan, you can't have the conversation. You can only speculate, fill in the blanks, and then subsequently hope to either confirm or contrast with whatever it is that you are seeing on the field. But you know, if provided the opportunity and they're willing, one of these days I'm gonna get Eddie Jones on the pod, and I just want to be like, yo, why are you the most hated person right now in rugby? Like Australia doesn't like, but at the same time, be like, I love the talk. So as an American, like I don't understand what people are mad about.
But it's like you can equate it to any sport. I mean, how many people hate Nick Saban besides Alabama fans? They're just going to hate. I will always hate Urban Meyer. I'm a Michigan guy. Fuck Urban Meyer. Fuck Jim Tressel. I will always. They could save a bus full of burning nuns. They can still go fuck themselves. You know what I mean? That's just the way it's going to be. You know,
going with the Nick Saban thing, it's almost impossible for me to fully hate him because he's the reason why LSU has been able to be on the run that it's been on. So like I steadily get sad, and so when he quit, like I'm like, finally, balance. And
his last loss was to who? Oh yeah, Michigan in the playoffs. That's right, baby. Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh retired Nick Saban. That's what I like to tell people.
No, I love it. Well, look, before we get started, we've already been started. 20 minutes into this, we already been started. But you know what? We can roll it back. That's why we get to do this we get to do these. So I do need to ask, because I always say, man, every hero's got their origin story, bro. And every origin story has something to go with. So Scott, man, I need to ask. I hope you're ready for this. If you heard the show, you know it's how did you get started with rugby?
It's funny because I just had a conversation with John Fitzpatrick about his playing club rugby over at American, because me and him are about the same age. He's a couple years older than me, and I'll go back to
same age, Scott.
I don't know. You have a young face, you know. I can't. Hey, man, people think I'm 45. I'm 37. You know, I'm also like built like an NFL nose tackle, so it's weird. But it's funny because so when I looked at American University, that's really where I wanted to go, was American University. I went early decision there and everything. And I went on several tours, and I asked on every tour if they had a rugby team, and they said no. And then during Fitzy's interview with you, he's like, not only did they, when I researched that they had a rugby team, it's like one of the oldest college rugby teams in the area. And I'm like, I was told they had no fucking rugby team. I mean, I was going to go there regardless of that, but my point being is like, what the?
Dude, look. I'm gonna tell you this before you continue, because I had a very similar experience with my first rugby team in Louisiana. So it was like, this was a team that I literally because I was in Louisiana, I came in during my high school year, so I was on campus, right? Yeah. My school was on campus. We had to walk through it. All right, I'm putting that to the context because this team that I came onto, I didn't learn about them until like almost 2009, so 9 years after I came to Louisiana. Never saw a whiff of them. All right. They said they had an LSU team that played in the quad. Scott, my school was literally like 10 steps away from the quad. I swear I've never seen them in my life. Until I came and I was like, wait, what's going on? Wait, you guys have a team? I literally joined the team because I was like, Baton Rouge doesn't have anything. They'll never have a team. And then lo and behold, they've had a team for like 40 years.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we do not market ourselves. I mean, it's very poor marketing. It's crazy.
Horrible.
But to go back, so I got intrigued in rugby. It has to be sophomore year in high school, and I'm trying to remember the teacher's name. Was Brian Powers. He was an English teacher at Iona Preparatory School where I went to high school, and he played collegiate rugby, and then he played men's league. And I don't know why rugby came up in the classroom one day. Maybe we were just kind of BSing in the whole class, and me and my football friends were in his class. Talked about rugby. I got interested. He started talking about the All Blacks because I think that's where back then we're talking 2003. 2002. Like, yeah, that's that. Like you talked about the Eagles because the U.S. Obviously had a team, but you talked about All Blacks, Australia, and South Africa. Really, it was Tri-Nations Cup, right? So I get into it, and I'm in high school. None of the high school teams that were around me had a rugby team. Xavier, all the way down in Brooklyn, had one, but I wasn't. I was far away, and I didn't even know at the time. I was sticking to playing football. I played hockey, football, lacrosse, and I did field events and track.
You are super northern New York. You are super north New York.
My dad played college hockey, and my dad played college hockey. All his brothers played hockey, so I grew up on skates. My brother played hockey. All my cousins played hockey. I played hockey from the age of 5 to men's league. I hurt myself around 22, and I had to just stop playing all contact sports because I couldn't be on disability. But so I started watching, and believe it or not, I don't know if you because now that you're around my age, do you remember SatantaSports.com?
No, it didn't reach it down to Iowa, Louisiana.
So, yeah, it was a pay-per-view channel that showed rugby, and it would show like the Tri-Nations Cup. But here's the thing: it would show the Rugby World Cup. Here's the thing: you want to watch Australia versus New Zealand? $99 on a credit card. But the good thing is they had the replay for like 4 days. So if you couldn't, watch it in the middle of the night, I was in high school, I'd beg my parents, hey, can I use the credit card? I want to watch this rugby match. And that's how I got into it. And eventually the next, I think, what was it? Had to be 2005 was the next World Cup. That's when I got, for $150, you got all the World Cup matches, all pool play to the final. Which is a big, considering I was spending $100 a match for the extra 50. I got to watch so many more, and then I go to school. I ended up at University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, which everybody thinks you say Dartmouth.
You go, hey, you're an Ivy League guy.
Yeah, college. Get the fuck out of here. It's like Louisiana. It's like going to like UL Monroe.
Monroe.
Yeah. So it's
LSU?
just
No. I went to UL Monroe.
Exactly. So UMass. You say UMass, everybody thinks Amherst in Western Massachusetts. Then you say Dartmouth, and they think Dartmouth College in New Hampshire or Vermont. And I'm like, no, I went to University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, which is in North Dartmouth, Massachusetts, and they had a club rugby team. The first year I didn't play. I was kind of still finding my way through life. I thought I wanted to join a fraternity. I rushed. I did the whole thing, and then I was like, really not for me. And the rugby team was. I had a bunch of guys in the fraternity were on the rugby team, and we would talk rugby. Like, you got to come play. You got to come play. You got. They're always recruiting. So sophomore year, I'd go. I play. Junior year, I'm treasurer. Senior year, I'm vice president. We're Division 4 in NERFU, New England Rugby Football Union. They have since moved up to Division 2 and have become like. I remember. I started 3 years, but I started flanker first, then prop 2 years because there was seniors ahead of me, and we would get $50 a semester from the school. For the activities, $50, nothing. We would have to spend $100 a match to rent an ambulance that never fucking came. We were our own kits, our own ball. Like, we would go to tournaments and stuff, and I had like a Scotland Rugby Union ball. That's what we would use to play. It's in Scotland with fucking thistles all over it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like we had a regular generic ball. Mismatched socks. We didn't have a coach. We played Dartmouth. What they were trying to do was they were trying to take the kids who were kind of iffy on the track team and turn them into rugby players. This was like the first crossover rugby thing I've ever seen. And so they were like a D side, they're playing us, and we're like, okay. And they come on a chartered bus, and they have coaches, they had a head coach, an attack coach, a forwards coach. They had trainers. Meanwhile, we're trying to pay our nursing student friends to like stitch us up with like fishing hooks. I'm not joking, fishing hooks and menthol dental floss, because there was this thing going around that said if you use the menthol dental floss, it has just enough chemical in it that you won't get an infection.
Whatever it needs.
Yeah, like whatever. Meanwhile, you have like a lightning bolt in your head because they don't know how to suture. They're just so they show up.
Wait, how do I come out like Harry Potter in this situation?
Dude, they have a bag full of balls. If somebody doesn't bring a ball for our practice, we practice without a ball. So we play them, and they start dropping like flies. And I don't mean to say like we were the toughest team ever, but we're playing rugby, we're making tackles, and I don't think these kids were used to contact because I think they were mostly track guys.
Right.
So by halftime, the referee, and we would always have the same referee. He was from South Africa, and he would always referee our games. He was great because when he would referee the B side, like if something was going on, he'd stop it and he'd teach the new guys like you can't do that. And he was really good. And I forget his name, and I hope he's still around because he taught guys all throughout New England how to play rugby because he knew we didn't have coaches, right? So he comes up to us, he's like, "Yo, they're leaving." I'm like, "What do you mean they're fucking leaving?" They ran out of guys. They're leaving. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm looking around, and they didn't even say goodbye to us. They just got on the bus and drove away. And I'm like, and this is just a friendly match. We're not like this is. They weren't part of the nerfew, so they were just like a test, a practice match, a scrimmage. And we're like, and I'm like, all right, I guess the game's over. Social time. Like, but we would play. Like, so we would tune up and we would play the Berkshire's men's club. And they were another great guys who would teach you thing. Like they were average probably 45 years old and they were playing against college kids, right? They were a club team, but they were teaching us like all the, like the dark art. That's how I learned the dark arts of the front row, like how to get like under a guy's chin and rub his, and twist my leg to get more leverage. And that's how we learned. And I graduated, went back home to New York, and then I got hurt playing men's league hockey, and I hurt my neck. And it wasn't like too bad. I didn't need surgery. It was one of those things where the doctor was like,
"You got to control. You got to pick and choose. Like
you got to go back into place." He's like, "It'll go back into place without surgery as long as you continue not to play contact sports." So I haven't played a contact sport since. I was looking to play like B-sides at Nyack at the time because I was close to Travers Island. And I knew about Nyack, I knew about Old Blue, I knew about White Plains, because I lived in that area. And then, that was like 2010, 2011. We're talking, that's a long time ago. I did my MBA at Iona College, and my dad did his bachelor's at Iona College. And like I said previously, I went to Iona Prep, so I always had ties to Iona College.
That team's like
I would go. Literally, I could walk to the field from my house, from my parents' house. So I would go watch Iona all the time. I'd go try and watch White Plains when I could and stuff like that. So I tried to keep up with it that way. And then when MLR was coming around, again, 2018. Or 2017, they kind of get together. They're going to start in 2018, and New York was part of that original ownership group. So was Toronto, so was Dallas, and I think New England as well. But they weren't going to field teams until 2019. Well, New York did a couple tune-ups against Toronto. They did a couple of matches at Iona College, and they did a couple matches up at York College, I think, in Ontario. And I got in with them, and they came in 2019. And before I even started with the Rugby Rant, I started a Rugby United New York Supporters Club. And unbeknownst to me, another guy had started one as well. And I had just gotten more out of it than this guy. And he's like, why don't we just kind of combine? And I came together with 3 other guys, and we were running this fan club. And we did that first year for New York. And I ended up,
I think I remember it too. It was a Facebook group as well too,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, it was a Facebook group, and we were getting people, over to Coney Island, which was a fucking 3-hour drive each way for me. It was insane. Going to the first match they played at home was against Toronto, and it was freezing. I mean, it was a night game. It had to be St. Patty's Day weekend around, so middle of March. And for those of you that don't know, Coney Island is an island, and then it's the ocean, right? Well, it's the sound. It's half the sound. Yeah, it's like, it's a little bit, but you're getting ocean, and that's the thing is they were playing in the baseball stadium, the single A baseball stadium for the Mets is the Cyclones, and the breeze would come through the outfield, and you would have to kick that way because you were going from right field to left field on the field. So the wind's whipping and this, that, and the other thing, and it was freezing. It was great though. It was absolutely fun. I'm like, this is going to be good. And then that kind of moved over into, I started doing stuff for Rugby New York till they folded. I was like their representative, as Dylan Fawcett likes to say. I'm the #1 fan, which I don't like that moniker because my buddy Jason was driving from Pennsylvania to home games for Rooney. You know what I mean? So as much as I want to bitch about my commute, Pennsylvania doesn't have, nobody was near him. He was driving all the way to New York to come to these matches. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of people who are
to Pennsylvania though, because I know this area.
He was like past Philly.
Oh shoot. Okay. So he's got a solid 4 or 5 hours that he's getting.
It was taking him. He would leave in the morning. And once he would cross the GW, I gave him a couple towns in Westchester. I'm like, go look for like a parking lot to sleep in and then meet us over where we're going to be. And he would like drive 3 or 4 hours, sleep at the parking lot, come meet us at the tailgate. We all ended up getting, after that first season, we all got tickets together. And then we had we ended up calling ourselves the Hard Hats after they went with the Ironworkers and stuff. First, we were the Rooster Boosters because I'll never forget. It was, Luke Hume was on the rugby team, was on Rugby United New York, and they had Mets colors. And he's Australian, but he lived in New York for a long time. So I don't know why he's like, he's like,
New York.
Yeah, he's like, oh, it looks like a rooster. I'm like, it's fucking Mets color. It's the state flag. Like, Luke, like what the fuck? So they started calling each other that 2019 team started calling each other the Roosters as a joke, and they would go like this, with the plume and stuff. So. Another fan, and I fucking forget his name. It's going to annoy me. He's like, we should be the Rooster Boosters. So we became the Rooster Boosters. And then eventually when they changed monikers to the Ironworkers, so we'll become the Hard Hats, but we stayed with that core group and we had the same section and we were building something there. And it was meeting those people. And like I mentioned before, our friends. So Jason, the guy who's from Pennsylvania, he was another Saracens fan that me and Sue met before the MLR started. So there's pictures all over my Facebook. Every time we got together, we always take a picture with a Sarries flag because that's how we met originally, like 5 years before the MLR.
That's so dope. That's so dope. But I like that because it allows there to be a consistency in how you are interacting with the players. Hang tight 1 second, Scott. Hang tight 1 second. If you don't, can you give me five minutes real quick?
Yeah.
All right. The spacing once a baby comes in. God, dog.
Oh man, trust me. I used to have to go to bed at like 6 p.m. because I knew I was waking up for the 1 a.m. feeding. And like I was telling you, my son sleeps through the night, so I would have to set my alarm, wake him up. And then usually after I fed him, belly's full, he's back to bed. But that was my thing. Once we didn't have to feed him in the middle of the night, I'm like, thank God. I'm lucky that he sleeps through the night.
I cannot wait for that moment. Right now, I was juicing off of just a little bit of hey, we get like a solid 4 or 5 hours straight, and it's like we're good.
Well,
like that's before it used to be like an hour and a half, and I was like, I now understand you're not going to sleep whenever you're a first parent because, but I feel like they did tell it correctly. They said you're not going to sleep when you're an early parent. And I was like, oh, okay, I can live with not sleeping. No. What they meant to say is you will lose and never return that sleep ever again.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Oh God. Friggin'.
But to the point that I was making beforehand, before the interruption that might end up happening again soon, you're lucky you had that group of people to be able to work, and I think that's one of the advantages of being in that Brooklyn, New York area, that New York upstate New York City.
Oh, don't say upstate. People are pissed off that you call Westchester County upstate. Upstate end. All right, so for people, upstate ends after you can't take the local train. So like even now, I'm in the
White Plains, Westchester,
not upstate. I'm in Putnam County,
New York lines,
dude. Okay, I grew up and lived in New Rochelle, and then the Bronx was there, so I was upstate. Get the fuck out of here! I could drive to the Bronx.
This is like the 8 Mile line in Detroit.
Dude, the best is you get transplants from the Midwest. They're like, oh, you're upstate. I'm like, you fucking moved here 3 years ago, and I'm not the New Yorker?
You guys just want to be like, yo, upstate is just Buffalo and the Canadians over there.
Okay. I will never forget this. I was doing an internship down at 120 Wall Street, which is the last building on Wall Street. And Wall Street's a hill. You get up until you get to Trinity Church. And I was working, and it had to be Christmas Eve. Get out of the building, and I make a right. I'm going to go up to the subway to catch the 6 train to get to Grand Central. And no joke, the Australian national basketball team is in front of me. Now, for those of you that don't know, where on Wall Street is the building that George Washington took his oath of office in for the president. So it's besides the fact that obviously, the stock exchange is there, the American Stock Exchange, the New York Stock Exchange, Trinity Church, which is at that point is a big deal because 9/11 is post 9/11. There's this history. So they keep stopping and looking, and I walk my way through. Now they're long-legged, they're skinny. They walk past me, and then they stop again. I'm like, fuck guys, excuse me. When I fat and slow, they walk past. The third time I said, fuck this, I'm going Shaq in the paint. I went through, and I was throwing elbows like this. And they start.
You were in the U.S., all right?
Yeah,
I need to put some respect on our name.
It's. I don't mind that you were past me because I was slow going uphill and I'm fat as a house but don't stop and then take up the whole sidewalk. And those New York sidewalks are super big. At least move to the side. And it's Christmas Eve and I don't know what the fuck you're doing. I need to go home. And they start saying in their Australian accents and shit. I was like, I swear to fucking God right now, I will fight each and every one of you individually if you do not get out of my face. And I think they just saw that I was dead serious, and it was just one of those moments that you just don't mess with somebody. They turned around, I turned around, and that was it. But sometimes the New Yorker comes out, you know what I mean? Like it's just.
I'll be honest. Again, this is where it goes to sometimes, hey, you need to remember, especially whenever something like the basketball team, where there's a certain level of cockiness that goes along with it because they're tall. Really, just because they're tall and everybody's just giving them a lot of.
Yeah, they saw a short, fat kid.
Right. Yeah. Look, you think because I'm small, I might be short, but you think that you're not going to get messed up. Understand where I'm from. That's why I was you need to put some respect on what's happening right now, all right? You were in our country. This was a moment where you become super xenophobic for just a split moment. I love you guys, but you've now made it this moment. I got to show you, and then we're back.
But don't you love a great ketogenic family? My name is GiftTime. I'm here with Health Enhanced Food. I wanted to talk to you about one of our top baking mixes, and that is our ketogenic baking mixes. We got a ketogenic seed baking mix, our ketogenic almond baking mix, and of course, our ketogenic coconut baking mix. Now, what is so important about it being ketogenic? Now, for those who don't know, ketogenic means that it is utilizing low carbs to be able to eat from. The point of it is so that your body will naturally activate burning from your fat and be able to sustain off your proteins rather than feeding your body carbohydrates and your body simply burning that and you just don't lose weight. And so whenever you're doing that process, it's incredibly difficult. And of course, you're always gonna have a craving for wanting to eat the breads and the carbs that you typically would have. With our keto baking mixes, you can have the pancakes, the waffles, the cookies, the cakes, the pizza crust that you absolutely desire without sacrificing the work, your diet, and obviously the results that you're trying to get. All our ketogenic baking mixes are gluten-free, grain-free, plant-based, and absolutely loaded with natural vitamins and minerals. We want to make sure that they are low net carb, they have no added sugar, they are protein rich, they have good healthy fats, but even more importantly, they have a low glycemic level. So for those who are diabetic and you're also still trying to find something, we have the baking mixes that are for you. And I'm sure you're wondering, why make 3 versions of them if they all are basically doing the same thing? Well, we wanted to make sure, as always, that we are trying to specialize to your dietary need. So with our ketogenic coconut, we wanted to give you a version that allows you to have a sweeter bread without sacrificing your diet. But it provides you things that you can make with your cakes, you can make your cookies, but you can be able to not have to lose your mind trying to find things that can satiate the taste without ruining your diet. With our ketogenic almond baking mix, that is one that has probably the highest protein content It allows you to be able to control your blood sugar levels, reduce your blood pressure, lower cholesterol levels, and of course, it goes to promoting weight loss and being able to control the hunger. And for our ketogenic seed, this is for those who have a nut allergy and they can't take anything like the almonds. So we want to give them still the same thing. You can still make your bread. You can still make your pizza crust. You can still make your cakes and your buns and your muffins, but you don't have to worry about having an allergic reaction. You definitely can go check out the ketogenic line of products at healthenhancedfoods.com. Go ahead. Keep up with your diet, get the foods that are necessary to keep you going, and let's get the results that you absolutely deserve. Let's go.
But I'm super cognizant, even when I go to the UK or I go to Europe or even Canada. Like, I got that New Yorker in me. I'm going to walk fast. We're going to walk single file if we have to let other people through. You know, I try not to hold up a line, like, which is funny because you hear all this stuff about Americans traveling and they do. I'm like, none of my fucking New York friends, we all hate that shit too. Like, so.
No, it's real tough. It's real tough. But that's the thing. Like, one, you know, especially when it comes to that, like, there's an element where I feel like whenever people talk about American tourists, it's literally I like to call it the resort tourist.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you just came to another country to get kind of America in another country.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to have my drink with an umbrella. I'm going to go to the restaurant, and then I'm going to get on the plane and go home. And you can do that shit in Florida.
Exactly. This could be anywhere. This is just tourism in general.
Yeah.
But then you get like that other element where it's like, no, I'm feeling like I want to be able to maneuver. I don't want to bother you guys in the same way. I want to be able to understand what you're doing with. But understand if you get into my way, like I do become very American. Like this blue passport really becomes very, very blue at the point. But otherwise, I'm cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love telling that story because I was like, there's like 12 of them. I looked every one of them in the eye and I said, I will fuck you up right now, each and every one of you, if you don't get out of my way. Because like, I was just, you know, I love tourism. I love the fact that people like to come to New York. And again, through rugby, I have friends rather, from the Saracens that come to New York. And my buddy Alan Morgan, he just swung through New York, and unfortunately we missed each other because he was only here for a day. Then he was going to Boston, he was going to a bunch of other places. But I have friends from the UK that come to visit, to do their stuff, and luckily I met them through rugby, and I'm friends with them enough to go down and grab a beer. And when I go to the UK, it's the same thing. I mean, I went to Ireland in 2019, right after the MLR season, and a bunch of the Rooney guys were Irish and back home, and I was like, okay, this guy lives in Cork, this guy lives here. As we're hitting, make sure we hit these guys at least for a beer to say hello. You know, Cal McIntosh, who was the reserve hooker for New York, Scottish, living in Cork at the time. We spent the whole day with him and his then girlfriend and her daughter, where we just had a pub day. It happened to be there was a test match, England versus Ireland. So I told my wife, let's not do anything. Like, let's not do the touristy thing. Let's ask Cal and his girlfriend, Nikki, where would they go to watch this match in Cork, meet them there, and spend the whole day watching rugby as like you would if you were just Irish living in Ireland, you know?
It's literally one of my favorite things. It's one of the advantages that come with, I think, being a rugby fan, especially one that gets to go international, and you get to know these people and connect, that you can just kind of like, I just love visiting people. Like, I genuinely, like, my visits are, let me go into this place. I like to walk around the city maybe a little bit just to get a feel, but let me just go visit my friends in all their places. And I love being in your environment.
Yeah,
I don't want
absolutely.
I don't want to stay at home. I don't want to do normal stuff. I want to do what you guys would normally do on a regular basis. Even if it's just like, yo, we're just gonna stay at the house. I'm like, yo, your house is tight. Like, I like just being in here.
It's different, you know. For our honeymoon, we went to the UK and we went a bunch of places. And my wife is really big fan of Jane Austen, the author. So we took a train to Bath to the museum. We went to Chatham where she's buried and this and other thing. So part of what me and my wife do is we always look to do something for each other. Saracens, we're going to play at home. So this is one of those things where, like, obviously I love my wife, but this is one of those things where it's dumb American, right? I get the tickets because it says the kickoff is at 10 a.m. Our flight's not leaving till 8 at night. So I was like, okay, we can leave. We can check out of the hotel, leave the luggage there because they have like a luggage thing, go to the match, then go back, pick it up, go through Heathrow to go through everything. Unbeknownst to me, like 4 days before we're supposed to leave, I'm looking at the schedule and it's like kickoffs at 3 p.m. And what Google had did was it said kickoff was at 10 a.m. because that was the Eastern time. That was New York time. So I brought that and I'm like, fuck. So I tell Brittany, we're going to have to miss the match in this. She calls our travel agent. She books us another hotel night in the same hotel and moves our plane. And we had to pay very minimal just so I can go to that match. And the reason why it's important was, so we go to the match on the last day. It's during Six Nations. TT Lamasatelli is on the Saracens, but all the starters are playing for England, Ireland. So TT's going to start. So I got my USA Rugby jersey. So I get to the try zone and I see the guys warming up and I just take off my shirt and I just kind of go like this because I see TT and it says USA Rugby. And he stops in the middle of his warm-up, come over to give me a hug and said, thank you for coming. You know what I mean? And then just went back to his preparation. But it's just going out there to try and support the USA guys who are abroad, right? We do the whole match, and then everybody's asking me, how'd you become a Saracens fan? Where are you from? Yada, 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 da, 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 da. Do that. We go, recently we went to Scotland last year, and I forgot what castle. We were in a castle, and I was wearing the latest women's World Cup shirt. The 15 Foundation does a shirt to fundraise. I always buy it. I'm wearing it, so it says like, "Let's fucking go Rugby World Cup." USA Eagles. There is a dude in this castle that is wearing a red RFU England Rugby Union hat, a red England Rugby kit, red England Rugby shorts, like basketball shorts, not like kit shorts, a red leather belt,
goodness gracious,
with red England Rugby socks and red leather boots. And he was in front of us, so he did not see me when we were online, but I saw him. And I told Brittany, I was like, my wife, I'm like, that's a rugby fan, We do the thing. It's amazing. We had a blast at this castle. We go into the gift shop. We're going to buy something. He finally sees me, because it's kind of like guided, but we were in different groups or whatever. And he fucking beelines over to me. He's like, rugby fan? I was like, yeah, American Eagles. We start talking. We're talking about the upcoming World Cup and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm explaining to him, like, I don't know if we have the MLR. He didn't know about it. I was like, Ben Foden used to be on the New York team, and we have a bunch of this. His wife beelines to come to us, grabs him and goes, "Stop talking about rugby. We're here on holiday," and pulls him. He was a 60-year-old man. Like, we're not talking like a young kid. They were in their 60s and pulled him away, and he was just like, and like a cartoon, like yoink. And he must see people in rugby gear and just stop and talk to them and ruin whatever plans his wife has. But again, we ended the last 2 days. We did our Scotland run. We ended the last 2 days in London, and I went out to dinner with a whole bunch of my Saracens friends because we're still friends now, And I'm talking. I've been friends with them now for like 10 years. It's crazy,
So let me ask this for you. And I love it because it's the media and extreme fandom simultaneously. Mm-hmm. For you, do you feel that you have you? How do you feel the level of your fandom has gone the more you've gotten to know more intricacies internally? Because there's obviously the beforehand where there's an ignorance and you're just a fan, but then there's a fan with knowledge. How do you feel it's affected your ability to be able to be a fan of that sort?
See, I think it's different. I think I have grown as a person. I've become more mature. Right. Yeah. So I talked about before, I'm a Michigan fan. It's funny.
It makes no sense as a New Yorker. I just want to say that.
So, all right. So I always got a story for something. So my mother's the Michigan fan. My grandfather is German. Everybody he worked with was Irish. They were all Notre Dame fans. The only team that beat Notre Dame was Michigan, so he became a Michigan fan. My mom became a Michigan fan. My dad really wasn't a football fan. Like, he was a hockey guy. Yeah. And so he likes the Jets. He considers himself a Giants fan, but he'll root for the Jets as long as they're not playing. But he was never like hardcore. My mom is a Michigan. My brother went to Penn State. She was disappointed. My wife went to Penn State. My mother loves my wife, but when Michigan plays Penn State, they don't fucking talk. They do not fucking talk. There's no visiting the grandson. There's no pictures. None of that happy shit.
You're dead to me for this next 4 hours. Yeah. You are dead to me.
You know, so that's where that came in. But like, you know, back when I was younger, it was like that volatile fandom, you know, right. and everything that I was a fan of. And now, you know, realizing like, especially like there's different levels to these things, and there's a reason, you know, USA is tier 2, and you know, I guess to your point, there knowing some stuff behind the scenes kind of eases my viewpoint of where I think we should be versus where we are, because I do get more explanations than other people. I think the biggest thing for me is keeping that inside. Me and Hammer talk about this on the show constantly. We feel like there should be more publicness of what's going on sometimes. Like they're so super secretive about everything. And this is MLR, this is USAR, this is 15, this is sevens, even some of the colleges. Like, I don't understand why everything needs to be a secret all the time. And like, it's not, this isn't fucking the NFL. This isn't this Belichickian thing. Like, we're not at that point where we need to, like, you know, do craziness, you know?
Right. I've, you know, and I'm glad that you talk on that, because it's one of the things that have always bothered me. I think it impacts the way I'm able to be a fan, because my curiosity, and a lot of people will, you know, clown on me because I'll forget some stuff about rugby information or something like that. Yeah. Like, you hear it on the show, like I'll say something completely wrong. It's not that I didn't know it; I just completely blanked. Because,
dude, you know how many times, dude, we have a guy. This guy I won't name because I hate him, and I will curse his name till the day I die. I curse his name to other people. We were doing a show, and Hammer said Sam Windsor was from New Zealand. He's from Australia. There's 450 active players in the NFL and the MLR. You're going to make a mistake when we're recording a show, and it's not worth to go back to re-record the fact that he's originally from Australia. And this guy hammered how professionalism. I said, the first thing we say on this show, we are not professionals. We will get things wrong. Things will be wrong. You just can't. We don't have producers. We produce the show. We figure out the content. We say it live. We don't have somebody in the background like a professional sports show to give us the information and put it on the screen. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to have a roster of all these guys in front of me with all their pertinent information, because guess what? There's no such thing. I would have to do it myself. And Doug Coyle does that, though. Shout out to Doug Coyle. He does that, and he sends it to me.
We're taking dumplings to a new level. My name is Gifte Belu. I'm here with Health Enhanced Foods, and I want to introduce you to one of our most popular products, dumpling flour. What makes our dumpling flour so popular is that it is a mix of unrefined super flours that create the maximum level of nourishment for your personal dumplings. This is including mixes like buckwheat, sunflower, flax seeds, everything that helps to be able to make your appetite stronger, more fulfilled, and healthier. Including within that, we have no added sugars, so we want to make sure that it is rich in protein, rich in fiber, and rich in vitamins and minerals. Our dumpling flour is diabetic friendly, high in quality gluten-free mixes with no rice. And if you know, you know. There's always a little bit of rice to be able to stabilize it. Not here in our dumpling flour. It is naturally nourishing. And of course, it's a great substitute for wheat-based dumplings. With this gluten-free dumpling, you can now make your croissants, you can make your rice dumplings, you can make your dessert dumplings. You can absolutely find this at healthenhancedfoods.com. Go ahead, get yourself a bag, get yourself a pallet, and make sure that you can fulfill for your people and yourself the way that you really deserve it. Don't wait, let's go!
And Doug Coyle does that, though. Shout out to Doug Coyle. He does that, and he sends it to me.
Doug is a beast with it. But again, everybody putting their place and purpose in place and where they need to be. Mm-hmm. But you know, and so it goes to that effect. So for me, it's like a lot of times, especially from on the men's side of rugby, my empathy is lower. I know a lot. Empathy is lower, but it always is more so based off of the confusion of why is everything so short term? Like, why is everything continuing to be like this? And that ends up being the intrigue. So, like, everything that I do when it comes to the media component or anything always kind of ends up wrapping around the fact of, like, I don't understand why we're not bigger. Like, I don't understand this decision. I don't understand why we're going this way. Like, this doesn't make sense. Why are we copying this? Why are we not doing this? And then now it's just like, okay, I want to be able to see this. So then when it comes to the fandom, it's like, okay, I mean, I see what we're doing, but I also know, like, we're kind of walking with our arm and our leg tied behind our back. So I don't know if I can give you my fullness because I don't feel the fullness being returned on that sometimes. So it's an empathy with it, but at the same time, like I don't feel like we're maximizing ourselves.
Well, also, again, I think it's an explanation of things. So, like, for example, we had the international series in the summer. Why they would have a match on July 5th when July 4th is a Friday was fucking beyond me. And then the next match, we're playing Scotland, and it had rained for like 48 hours in DC. And don't get me wrong, Audi Field's a good field, but I've been there for many PR7s events, and in that time frame, it always rains. And people in the DMV know it's humid down there, and the pitches are fucked up. So again, I understand why you centralized it, because you can get the north and the south, the southern seaboard to come up.
Travel, it's a cheaper maneuver.
But was it the best place to do it at the time of year? I don't know. But also, they bled some new guys. Like, it's we're not into qualification yet for the World Cup, so you could bleed some new guys. You could try some different things. You can give some guys some caps that would, bring them to a certain level. A 50 mark, a 100 mark, a 150 mark, let's say, because the win or loss doesn't necessarily matter. But I think for the casual rugby fan, they don't know that. They don't understand that. For you and me and Hammer and all these guys that we're all friends with and do these shows, we know that. So there's like the expectation going into Scotland was, in my mind, was we were going to try and work on, our maul game, because we had kind of lost it, right? And we were kicking to the corner. We were, doing our lineouts. We weren't executing, but I could see where that was going. And then, the end of the Scotland match, I hear a lot of fans go, how come we didn't use the back line? How come we didn't use the back line? Well, we didn't need to, because we were trying to work on like 4 or 5 things to get better on incrementally when we do have to qualify. And again, you and I know that.
Right.
The casual fan doesn't, because their experience is American sports, and every match counts. Every game counts. You know what I mean? You don't have the ability to necessarily try things. You know what I mean? So it's
when you're trying still within the concept of you got to win the game, but maybe it's like, I'll give you a first half, I'll give you a quarter of the game, and then now it's time to get on it.
Yeah. So, and I think that's hard for American fans to understand. And part of the thing we're doing at the Rugby Rant is we always, I feel, and if Nick Benson is listening, I'm sure he's not, the MLR should be the part of the organization that teaches fans about rugby, that tries to gain the new fans. The individual teams should really worry about the product on the field, what's going on at the stadium, doing their social media, and a little bit of education. But the MLR is the one who should centralize the education, right? And me and Hammer constantly talk about this. One of the things me and Hammer actually agree on. So I put my money where my mouth is. I did a Rugby 101 through the blog, and it's just basic. And people kind of privately came after me, like, what the fuck are you doing? Because it's not this heavy statistical analysis, is this heavy analysis that I could be doing. And I was like, well, our tagline is grow the game of rugby one fan at a time. And if everything we did on the site was for fans of rugby already, we're not growing the game. And I think we lose sight of that sometimes. You know what I mean? And even my father, who watched me play in college, and I got him a ticket to Rooney, and we went, he still doesn't understand the fucking game. He's watched about 200 matches, so think about that portion. So, and then you have 15s, you have 7s, then you have, guys playing 10s, and then you have beach rugby, and then you have wheelchair rugby, then you have rugby league.
Not even get rugby league thrown into that mixer as well too.
Exactly. And now you have all the numbers are reversed and everything's all, and then people look at Aussie rules football and think it's rugby. So we're trying to bring it down. Part of what I was trying to do is bring it down to a level where somebody can be like, okay, I understand it. It's very simple. It's this to this to this to this to this. I think next week or the week after, we're rolling into Rugby 101 positions and talking about individual positions again in a broad scope. A prop is numbered 1 and 3, and this is the loose head, and this is the tight head, and da-da-da-da-da. And then eventually I'm going to go a Rugby 102, and I'm going to go more in depth into all these subjects, but I want to build on it. So that way we have this core. So if you, I'm a Freemason, and one of my brothers, Jay, his son plays collegiate rugby at New Paltz. They get a bunch of new guys all the time. Jay was like, I told your son you're doing this thing about, Rugby 101. He's sending it to all the new guys. Anytime there's somebody comes to the table to talk about rugby, they're sending them a link to your Rugby 101 introduction. And then subsequently they're going and reading through it. So like, we have to learn, people aren't just going to jump on the bandwagon.
Right.
You have to build it incrementally, and it still is word of mouth or word of social media. Look at Alona Mar doing the whole Dancing with the Stars thing. But now you have to build on that, right? So when Alona Mar comes out, what is USA Rugby going to do to get these fans to go to a 15s or a 7s match?
And that's exactly this. And this is where it always gets to the confusion component for me, because in the same guys, like I'm with you where it goes, like, I feel like MLR, like as an organization, should be educating, because you are the closest to the ground at the elite level. If you may, like, people would assume professional, you're playing at the top level, and then international is an all-star maybe version as an American look. But that's where it goes. Like, sometimes it's like, the things that you could be doing, you're not. Use the Alona Mar situation as a perfect example. I say, like, now the clock, literally at the moment the USA women won bronze, like, the clock started for LA 2028. Yep. And I've always said that, like, there's been so much focus on RWC 2031 that it's like you're skipping the literally most important rugby promotion tool ever.
We have a Women's World Cup next year in 15.
Yeah. We have that as well too. And even within that element, like, but it's even within that element, I can understand people go like, okay, I'm not sure about that.
Yes.
But at home, as an American public, as a US based arena, LA 2028 is the pinnacle of the marketing tool. I feel if you don't take advantage of that 4 years of training and then take advantage of that moment, 2031 is going to be basically irrelevant, because you basically would have lost the biggest marketing tool that you have. So it's like, what are you doing to prepare for it? And are you doing it to prepare for, once again, one side or the other? I know, talking with Mike Friday, he spoke about like the worry that he has that the USA program, will go one side or the other. So like before, the women are getting left in the dust, but and the men are getting kind of help from the Golden Eagles. But now you have this flip where the energy is on the women's side and they're getting the money, and the men's side is basically on a rebuild, which is the worst freaking time to have a rebuild, but like on the rebuild side. And so it's like, no, you've got to remember that there's a balance that goes to both of these, and include that with the 15 side. But you need to make sure that it's like you're educating people, not just educating on like what the game is in another video about, Rugby 101, but also tell us the players, create a superstar, put people through something that they can put an eye onto, because you see that with Alona, where it's like now Alona is the representative for rugby in the US for women, and then it's really body positivity that does rugby and for all women around the area in that almost order. But you've got her till 2028.
But if she even on the men's side,
she's not coming back.
Dude, even on the men's side, when you think of players in the NFL, the casual fan, right? The casual fan that knows a little bit about the NFL, the refrigerator Perry. But think about Mean Joe Green, right? The Minister of Defense, right? We have a guy in the MLR, Dylan the Butcher Fawcett. How come he's not the face of the MLR?
My point exactly. These are the things that make me go, I don't feel like you're giving me your max, because it is. I've always said this. There should be a yearly tour every offseason that you have 3 to 5 of your star players, and they just go out. You pay them the extra, and all their job is to do is market, get on any podcast, get on every show, be able to be in the community. Like, their whole job is to do a tour that promotes the MLR and rugby, but we create a name to them consistently so that people can have a distinctive attachment to it. And that will trickle effect back to the MLR. That creates now a stake because otherwise it's, well, there's a game, and it's not to say that the game on the product on the field hasn't improved. It clearly has, but
No, absolutely. And the individual teams are doing it with players who stay in the area because they either become coaches of club teams or they work with Rugby Now, Play Rugby, to get it into schools and stuff. But here's the thing. This will be controversial, and people might not agree. USA Rugby fans, when we're at an event, are bad fans. And this is my experience going to a lot of rugby events at a lot of different MLR venues, a lot of seeing the Eagles, men's, women's. It's like you go to see your friends who are also at the event. You're not really there to watch the match.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things I think we need to do is show big crowds. And people talk about the PR7s and the party atmosphere, and it's there. And when you're at the PR7s and you're at Audi Field for the finals, there's 3,000 people that are in their seats because they're milling about, and it's like a baseball game. Like if you ever watch a baseball game, it's a sellout crowd, but it's patchy because I'm going to see. I haven't seen Jimmy in 20 years, or let's get a picture with this one and that one. And it seems as though there's so many people trying to catch up with their rugby friends that they're using it as the social event instead of maybe a college football fandom is so into the game. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't know how we change it. I don't think it's a bad thing. When I'm saying we're bad fans, I mean when you see the production of what's going on television, it gives us a bad look because it looks like stadiums are empty, but they're not. And I don't want to lose the social aspect of it because it's important, and that's ingrained in our roots of rugby. But we need to come together to say, let's sit down for a 40-minute half and get in our seat when they're singing the national anthem and make the stadium look fucking full when they're going to be looking for fans. You know what I mean?
I see exactly what you're saying. So it's interesting, even in that factor, because this is a factor that happens with HBCU football games. So within those, typically a lot of times people aren't there for the games, especially
they're there to meet with their sorority brothers, sorority sisters, and their fraternity brothers, and it's alumni weekend, and
which is great. And to the point that you said, the social aspect holds a factor. But again, it then goes to how do you make sure you organize it where everything still looks busy, it looks active. You want to create a kinetic energy for the viewing perspective as much as you want to create that same energy on the ground themselves. And yeah, I think probably as you're saying, it being bad fans is the controversial way of saying it.
Yes.
It goes back to the even organization, production. And again, this is where it gets a little tough for me because I'm I understand how tough it is to organize. Events are an MFer to put together, and making sure you're putting people where you want them to be is even bigger. But at the same time, it's what is you want the strategy to tell a story that makes everybody create a level of a FOMO that goes with it. And if you're not presenting that, and I think this is where the part where I get unempathetic with USA Rugby, maybe not so much because it's broke, but with an MLR or something like that, is that it's not so much that you're just rich and have it. I was you have a resource. You clearly have a team. You're capable of putting something together, right? So you have the resources capable to be able to, help organize this element where you can position the story favorably for you and then piece them into the right paradigm so that whenever people see it, whether it's in articles, in video clipping, in the games themselves or pictures, whatever, you can determine what the story is as opposed to kind of laissez-faire the whole concept. And then it makes it look like it's not a big deal. It looks small, and it's just another passing game. And again, there's no stakes involved. And this is one of those things that I think, I always say, it affects me because I'm just I want to care more, but I don't feel like you care that I care.
But it's also, you have to I still hate when people bitched about where New York was playing. I live in a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, half an acre house, half an acre property that was built in the 50s for like as a vacation home for somebody. It's the property's worth like $300,000. That's cheap. People are paying $5,000 a month to live in 1-bedroom apartments in Manhattan. So you don't what you think somebody's gonna. Okay, the Mets owner Steve Cohen, he purchased a plot of land to build a soccer stadium for the new Queens soccer team. Right. The land, just the purchase of the land, I think was like $40 million, and then he had to give $10 million to the city of New York to revamp all of Corona Park, specifically to make it better for kids sports, which he was like, fine. He's a billionaire. He's like $10 million to the city to create something for kids. I'll do it. But my point being to create, and just to purchase the land, not to build the stadium. So to purchase the land was $40 million. Plus he has to do a stadium on top of that fits. I think they're trying to get 25,000 people in there. Right. So you're complaining that Rooney had to play at a fucking high school?
Yeah, like, and those are things that goes back to the nuance of the understanding the industry, right? Like, but that's why it's like at the same time, like I expect whenever we do rugby stuff, we work within a guerrilla market, right? Yeah. Don't do things by the book of what you've seen MLS or NFL does in a natural. They might provide an inspiration of an idea, but you need to do I'm broke. So how do I do broke folk stuff to maximize? Because that's where the real monetization comes into, and then subsequently, that's where you find your growth and then find your biggest return in value. And sometimes I guess I look at it and I'm just like, you're not doing broke folk stuff. You're rich with no money. Like that doesn't, you're spending above your means. Like you need to be like maximum. Like every time I see another player that comes from overseas to come play, and I know they're getting paid under the books, I'm like, if you are not maximized, like this is where capitalism comes in. You maximize that value. I don't want to see him just play on the field. I want to see him do everything.
Yes.
Everything. He might barely be able to see his family. It's okay. You came to work. You came to work. I need you for this time. We were going to get our value out of it. The product of the field is the product of the field. But I want to see you work. I see you promote everything. You're going to be at every community event, at every, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, that's where I go, like, you're not doing broke stuff.
Or learn what to spend money on. Like, my grandparents were on both sides were Depression era people. So, like, my mother always said, always spend on really good luggage because that'll last you a long time. Like if you spend on cheap luggage, it's going to fall apart. So one of the things New York did was, their game day experience wasn't the best. And one of the things that they knew was like the stadium announcer was good, but there was that in-between time where they could have things going on. So they went and if you could check him out on Instagram is I think it's at DJ John Black. And he's the DJ that DJs for the New York Jets. And guess what? We play during the football offseason. It's in between. It's right after college basketball. It's 4 months before football. He was doing weddings. Guess what? Every Sunday he had a gig now at a home match at Rooney, and he was a professional level DJ. And I'm sure you had to pay more than obviously if I did it with an iPad or something. But it turned that touch of having nothing going on in between the PA announcer saying something to when the ball's out of play. Let's play music. If there's the 20-minute timeouts for water break, let's play some music. And put some production into what's going on in the stadium. Again, you have to pick and choose what you want. People were complaining about the beer prices. I'm like, it's the same shit at Madison Square Garden, dude. Right. And you don't bitch when you go watch the Knicks. You don't bitch that you're drinking a $20 beer, but you're bitching because you're gonna. And they were doing like 22 ounces for like $12, which is good for New York. And they're just ticket prices. Like people complain about $25 a head for a ticket, dude. No joke, dude. No joke. This was Aaron Rodgers was back in Green Bay. I'm a Green Bay owner. I'm a shareholder. They're coming to play.
Scott, I'm sorry. What's going on with your sports fandom? This thing is so spread across the planet.
No, it's not, because Desmond Howard is my favorite Michigan. Well, my second favorite Michigan player. Anthony the A-Train Thomas is my number one. But he played on the Packers and won a Super Bowl MVP there, and that's kind of where I got that. And then in 2010, they had the stock offering because the NFL said they needed to have lights because they used to not have night games at Lambeau. Yeah. And the NFL was like, yeah, we can't do that shit. You got to have primetime games. So they did a stock offering because technically it's publicly owned, and so I bought stock. So anyway, long story short, what the hell were we talking about? I got too many stories.
From Green Bay. Like, I love it.
Yeah. No. God damn it. What the fuck?
Green Bay because of your fandom with Desmond Howard and A-Train.
Yeah, fuck. Dude, I completely lost it. But I'll figure it out. But my point being, Aaron Rodgers. So you want to talk about ticket prices. Giants are going to play, Green Bay is going to come to Giants Stadium. I get 3 tickets for me, my dad, and my brother. They're Giants fans. We are in the last row of the end zone, which is the worst seats possible in any stadium for football. High, you're looking vertical, you're looking across the field. I spent for 3 tickets $400. That was the regular price. $400 for 3 tickets. Week 2, Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. Those tickets drop down to like $75 a ticket. Week 4, the backup gets hurt. Week 5, the third string gets hurt. I forgot who it was. The third string gets hurt, and then they have to get a guy off the street. Those tickets, the day of the game, were going for $17 a ticket.
God,
and I spent $400 when I could have spent $50. But my point being is I didn't bitch. That's the fucking game. So for $25 a ticket to go support your team, and what's the best way to support an MLR team if you have the funds is to go buy their merch and go to matches.
Right. This is true.
That's how we need to give them our financial leverage. That's when I say people, you want to be a fan, put your money where your mouth is. If you have an MLR team in the area, go to a match, go buy a ticket. Usually they have, buy one, get one free for a friend and this and other thing. Bring somebody else for the experience. Trust me, kits outrageously priced. They don't even fit me. I still buy one because it's going to the team. You know what I mean? Right. They literally don't fit me. A 3X is a field size kit, no matter what you get. And I don't need my man titties nice and tight. I'm not getting tackled. I'm serious. I don't need it to be tight. I need it to be comfortable. So I need like a 7X, and they never sell them. Okay, no problem. I'll get a 6X and I'll have it because I'm a collector and I have a bunch of junk. But you got to put your money where your mouth is, and that's where some fans throw me off because I'm like, you've never been to an MLR match and you want to talk about the product shit. But you don't help the product anyway, and the number one way you could do it is monetarily.
Right. No, and I like that fact, and that is factually true. Like there has to be a value. There's a value transaction that goes along with it. For you to want things to be better, you do, and I think that's something that does impact. I think a lot of rugby fans in general, that because the nature of the sport is based so much into amateurism, and we pay our dues, of course. But most things is
barely. Like, I was a treasurer, barely. Yeah, I was chasing guys.
It's a push. It's a push. Yeah. Like the guys are getting to the field, they'll play, but we do so.
When's the last time you sipped up? 4 years ago,
Facts. Facts. Right. So it's like there's a. I think it's a bit of a cultural error, but I also understand why it exists. That payment and transaction is not inherently natural within the rugby community. Most things are pretty well given, and it makes it for the camaraderie. It makes it for the community aspect you want to provide without any necessarily recourse. But it does impact the growth potential unless you play a little bit of a manipulation game on it, and the value proposition has to be massive in it. So in a situation where people will pay 100, 150 to watch Ireland and the All Blacks play, and USA doesn't even really get anything from that. On the flip side, you complain about the $15-$20 to play the MLR, but that goes directly to them, but you don't feel the value as high. Which is why I go back to say again, it's like when it comes to these administrations, I often go like, yo, I need you to stop playing rich because it's giving people the wrong idea of what you are, and I need you to play broke but look rich, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I definitely understand what you're saying. No, that does make sense. And again, I think you have to. Yeah, unfortunately, it's not. There's no correct formula for every place.
Right.
So one of the things.
Everyone has a different segment.
Yeah. So my buddy, one of my really good buddies from high school, he works for the New York Giants, and he works in their marketing department. He's been working for the Giants now for like 15 years. Wow. And what he does is he liaises either. If it's home, whoever's coming to visit, he's walks their marketing team through what the Giants do on game day and what's successful. And then when the Giants go to wherever, Carolina, he goes and the Carolina folks show him what's successful at their stadium. Because the NFL is like, well, if it's working over here, maybe you should try it over, or, if you change it, however you need it, but maybe it'll be successful here and things like that. So that's why if you notice a lot of NFL franchises do the same thing. So one of the things my buddy did, which started like a whole thing throughout the thing, is my buddy was born with a facial deformity, and they thought he was going to need a seeing eye dog. And there's this organization called Guiding Eyes that's in New York here, and they get people seeing eye. They started out doing seeing eye dogs. Now they do emotional support animals too for people with PTSD. So he got the Giants to do and Guiding Eyes to come in and give a veteran an emotional support dog at halftime at Giant Stadium, and Eli Manning eventually got involved on his own, like outside the Giants with it, because he thought it was a good cause. And then my buddy Chris, brought the other teams in, like, hey, this is something. So they all got with their local people who are like Guiding Eyes, and then they started doing it. And now it's like an initiative across the NFL where you see a lot of these, veterans come back and they need emotional support animals. They don't have the means to do it, and they're the teams are footing the bill for them to get this specifically trained animal, so my buddy, he ended up not needing the seeing eye dog, but what they did was, if you fail the test, the dog still has the genetics. So he and his family had the dog, and every other year they would inseminate the dog, and those puppies would then go to be trained and be tested. And it was like a 75% success rate of dogs to become a seeing eye dog. And then the other 25 will become breeders. And he, told them, the Giants, the whole story about, how he got into it, and, and it worked. I'll again, I always got to bring it back to me. I gave him a great fucking idea that he never used. I met my wife on Match.com. And she was the last person I talked to on Match. I was getting rid of the app. Again, this is a long story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. The day before we go on our date, me and my father are on the train. We work in the same office. He's reading the New York Times, and he gives me the elbow. I'm like, what? He goes, there's an article in the New York Times that says women who are moving to New York and LA and stuff are using Match.com to go out on dates every night because they're so house poor with the rent. They can't afford to eat. Oh. So they're going on dates because they're either going to go Dutch and split the bill, or the dude's paying for them. So I was like, all right, whatever. That's weird. And my dad's like, he wasn't sure about the whole internet dating thing. He's an old school guy. Him and my mother met in high school. They're like the typical love story, whatever. So I'm going to go on a date with my future wife, who I don't know. We go to this nice barbecue joint, and she takes the food, and she's not eating it. And now my dad's in my head, like this, like when she wraps it up, Long story short, and this ends up being my wife. But what I told my buddy was what you should do, and maybe the MLR should do this: have an MLR Match.com couple of the match. Two people, have Match sponsor it. They spend for 2 Giants tickets and a dinner for whatever this couple is. You show them on the Jumbotron once, the New York Giants Match.com couple of the match. They go on a date after the game. And he told me it was a stupid idea. Chris, go fuck yourself. It was a great idea. But my point is, it's things like that. Like if you see when they have the puppy races, and they have this and they have that. Well, one of the things Rooney did was they had a local high school marching band that had a really good drum corps, and they would come out once or twice a year and do stuff. And they had the dogs catching frisbees, and they really tried to hype up the game day experience. And I think we need to kind of push to the next level now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly it. The things that make it look bigger, all right? Things that make the whole concept bigger, and it brings different ideas. One person said it great in my opinion, and they basically were like, Oh shoot, we need to take after basically what like minor league baseball has been doing,
Yes. That's
right? Like
Savannah Bananas, you know?
exactly. But Scott, man, dude, I love it. We can keep this going
Yeah,
on,
I'm
but
telling you.
bro,
This will
look,
be the
I'm
longest
not even
episode
gonna lie.
ever. I got a
It's
story.
baseball.
Typical New Yorker. I got a story for everything.
I love it. But look, man, well, first and foremost, before we get off, I do want to say, man, I want to throw some flowers over towards you and Hammer, but right now I got you. That I appreciate what you guys have been able to do for the history of rugby in the USA and the impact that you guys make within it, the conversations that you have, and basically the ability to be able to guide people through in a way that if they don't understand the game, they have a method to go through. So it's very significant, and as much as, like I said at the beginning, who you have on, it's like no,
Yeah.
you deserve to be on there as much as the next one. So I give my
Listen,
tweet to you guys.
You were one of the first people we had on in the first season a couple of times. You know what I mean?
And
so I mean, I gotta.
great.
Yeah, and
I was
listen,
totally not prepared.
well, and that's the best part of our show. Like, you need to be prepared a little bit, but like, really, we want people to really give your insight, and it doesn't have to be. Again, it doesn't have to be specific, but what you're feeling, what you're a fan, what are you feeling right now? You know, and that's kind of what we're trying to do on the show.
No, and that it came out great. I've loved being on the show. You know, whenever Rob came through and helped out as well too.
Yeah.
But look, hey, tell me where people can find you at.
So you can go to Facebook at Rugby Rant Pod, at Rugby Rant Pod on social media, YouTube, the Rugby Rant. The rugbyrant.com is where we have all of our blogs, and we have the latest episodes. Our show episodes are usually coming out Thursday nights. Audio is Friday morning. Blogging, it depends on what we've been doing. Usually we've been getting 2 or 3 blogs out a day in the first couple months, which is nice, but I'm sure that content will start to slow down as all my ideas are no longer fresh. Again, it's long stories, but cut them short. I had so many ideas about what I wanted to blog that I cranked out about 30 articles, like the first 4 days, because it was in there, and I just need to get it out. Yeah, so it's going to slow down at some point. Who knows when? But if you want to contribute, if you want to come on the show, if you want to write, at rugbyrantpod@gmail.com, or you can contact me or Hammer through Facebook, personally. And we're always looking for writers, specifically women. We've reached out to a couple women, and we haven't connected yet, but we would love a woman's perspective. Even, I wouldn't say kids, but if you're a high schooler or a college student and you like writing, listen, we're here for your opinions too. Even if it's something, as long as you feel strongly about the game and you have a passion for it. I'm not highly editing things. I'll probably change the title every so often just to make it a little more catchy. Because Rob likes to just In Touch number 11. I'm like, you got to give it a fucking name. Like, In Touch is the name of his blog, but like, you just can't go number 11. He has no idea about SEO. He is the youngest old man I ever met. He still has an Android. Don't even get me started. But anyway, check us out. You'll find us. You'll find us.
Dude, Scott, I love it, man. Thank you so much. I look forward for us to do a part 2 on this one. We get this more without added distractions, hopefully.
no worries, bro. Thanks for letting me come on. I appreciate it, dude.
I want to thank you, Scott, so much for taking the time to be able to be on the show. Thank you for the discussion. We're going to do this again. And thank you, everybody, for taking a listen. I hope you were able to pull some value from it. I hope that you were able to glean something different and just get a different perspective, or maybe to get a relatable perspective of what rugby is and what it can be. And y'all, I thank you guys so much. As I said at the beginning of the show, please check out some of our other episodes. Of course, we've got some great interviews. Like I said, we had Mike Friday of USA Rugby Men's Sevens, Olympic head coach, and big time discussion. Went into depth. Great. Nadine Ruth, Olympian. Fly half for the spring box, already doing damage on the WXV, getting ready for the Women's Rugby World Cup next year. Amazing. Joanne Yap, head coach for the Australia Women's Rugby team, the Wallaroos. Another great showing, WXV2, while also simultaneously getting ready for the Rugby World Cup 2025. It is just all around. We're trying to make sure we get those interviews so that you not just get the rugby, but get the human as well too. So thank you guys so much for the time. But most importantly, I hope that you know that I hope that you are happy. I hope that you are healthy. And obviously, most importantly, I hope that you know that you are highly favored. Till next time, y'all. Cheers.